when we start to use the language of levelling up, I think our minds turn quite naturally to images of level playing fields, you know, wanting to give everyone a fair chance, an equal opportunity to thrive and prosper. But of course, we all know that that is not how the world works for British children. Not before COVID, and Bob just mentioned that old report on the experiences of the Northern child, and certainly not after. Now, there are two kinds of inequalities that are experienced by families, by children and young people in Britain today. The first is that they are all less likely to have good health and well-being, good levels of development and educational attainment compared to their peers who live in other more equal societies, including some that spend less on services than we do. But perhaps more relevant to today's discussion, within the UK, some children are much more likely than others to start their life's journey not on a level playing field, but burdened with risks and vulnerabilities, challenges and obstacles to overcome. It's as if they start out on life's journey already with weights and shackles. Now, the most recent data that we've got for life expectancy at birth before the pandemic reveal really shocking inequalities. There is a 20-year gap for girls growing up in areas with highest life expectancies in the south and the lowest life expectancies in the north. One region, Camden, had a life expectancy of 95.4 years for girls compared to somewhere in Leeds where it was 74.7. And for boys, that gap is even bigger, 27 years. Life expectancy in Kensington and Chelsea is 95.3 years compared to a shockingly low 68.3 years in Blackpool. And the places where children have got the lowest life expectancy are those urban areas in the major cities of the north: Leeds, Newcastle, Manchester, Liverpool and Blackpool. And those huge inequalities in life expectancy, those were actually increasing before COVID, with life expectancy, in fact, going down, particularly for girls growing up in disadvantaged northern communities and in areas with pre-existing high levels of poverty. Now, if we'd got more time together, don't worry, Will, I will finish on time, I could paint equally vivid pictures using shocking statistics to show you pre-pandemic inequalities for low birth weight, for premature deliveries, for infant mortality, for child mental health, parents' mental health, obesity, asthma, type 2 diabetes, and so forth. I could show you the same for low educational attainment, the risk of young people being not in employment, education, or training, and for social mobility. And there is nothing natural about those inequalities. They're a consequence of poverty, of deprivation, and inequalities of wealth and income. They are unjust, but they are a result of how we organize society. They all got worse with a decade of austerity, but they are preventable, and we can do something to address them. So poverty is probably the biggest reason for the north-south divide in health and well-being and children's life chances. On average, levels of child poverty are higher in the north. There's a greater density of areas with very high levels of child poverty. And children growing up in poor families, they have more food insecurity, more housing insecurity, worse housing conditions, as we heard from Christine, fewer material resources of all kinds. But poverty and its direct material effects is just one side of the picture. Poverty also creates indirect effects on children's bodies and minds. It disrupts child brain development. It changes stress responses. It changes metabolic balance over the life course, including increasing the risk of many adult chronic diseases which burden our population health and our productivity. So if we want to level up the north-south productivity gap, first we have to level up the health gap, and the health gap starts in pregnancy and childhood. Now, COVID has of course made things worse. It's exposed and amplified health and social inequalities. And perhaps the most devastating long-term costs of the pandemic will be for today's children. COVID has changed their living conditions. It has hit their families' incomes and employment status. It's affected their education and their own access to health and social care services. Children in the north of England spent more time in lockdown, in more difficult circumstances, and this has affected their parents' mental well-being and their own mental health. The pandemic has really exacerbated the pre-existing problems for families in the north, increasing poverty, increasing family stress, and at the same time, it has removed from children protective environments such as good schools and access to supportive services. And if we don't act quickly and decisively for children and families, we won't be able to level up. In fact, we will risk leveling down in skills, increasing health inequalities, reducing social mobility, and decreasing societal productivity. But here are the hopeful things that come from focusing on families. First, you get a lot of bang for your buck. There's a massive body of evidence that shows what a great return we get from investing in early childhood. Spend £1 now and we would start realizing a return immediately, per child, per year. It's cost effective even during a budget crisis. Nobel Prize winning economists know that one of the most effective strategies for economic growth is investing in the developmental growth of at-risk young children. There are cost savings through having to spend less on special education, less on remediation, less on healthcare and social services, less on criminal justice and more, and the accrual of benefits through increased self-sufficiency and productivity among families. You get to break long-standing intergenerational cycles of the perpetuation of poverty and inequality if you focus on children. And the second is this quick return. Yes, there are short-term costs. Some of the benefits will accrue over the lifetimes of the children we invest in, but there are immediate and short-term savings as well. And many of the levelling up priorities and projects that government are talking about will take a long time to produce benefits. But if you start investing in early childhood, we'll see dividends for society and for individual children's life chances from the start. The third is that we know what to do. We know that investment in early childhood education and care is really good. We know that apprenticeships are fabulous. We know that families need universal basic services, including digital connectivity and excellent public transport. And actually, we know how to bring communities together to create place-based solutions to local wealth creation and retention. We could use the Marmot indicators from Sir Michael's framework for reducing health inequalities. We could take UNICEF's approach to creating child-friendly cities. And why not a child-friendly country? We could use our amazing network of FE colleges to amplify skills and life chances of disadvantaged young people and smooth that post-16 transition. We could put youth workers in schools. We can work towards net zero exclusions from school. So when I was chairing the Greater Manchester Independent Inequalities Commission last winter and spring, I was constantly buoyed up by the creativity and innovation that communities themselves can bring to bear on problems, and how when you start involving families and young people in our decision making, we can grow place-based solutions to challenges. Two of the exciting ideas I heard about were the triple win possibilities of training young people for high-skilled work in the green economy. You get environmental, economic, health and social payoffs. Or supporting cooperative, mutual and social enterprise models for childcare. That creates high-quality jobs and high-quality care with local wealth retention. There's no shortage of community ideas and local investment that government could unlock through its priorities within levelling up. Now, if you've been paying attention to COP26 over the last week or so, you might have heard a lot of people discussing the benefits of regenerative economies. Investing in children and families creates a regenerative cycle of human and social capital. We won't level up without attention to families, children, and young people, we'll just be stuck in that cycle of intergenerational poverty and inequality. But if we get it right, we won't just level up, we will thrive and flourish and prosper and grow. Thanks.